would you want to do life alone when you could do life with God? Why would you want to do business alone when you could do it with God? We have the ability to ask the creator of the universe to help us make the right business decisions. And a lot of the mistakes that we make can be avoided if we just sat, we pause, and we ask God if we should continue with this or not. Let's talk stewardship. If you are a business owner, this is for you. If you're a Christian business owner, even better. Thirdly, if you have an idea that you want to start working on, if you have a business that you want to do, even better. This whole topic of stewardship is inspired from the Bible plan that I just finished reading, 10 Qualities of a Kingdom Business Owner. And if you haven't read it, I highly suggest that you do. I'm going to link it in the description box below if you want. But essentially, it's about qualities that every Christian business owner needs to possess or needs to start working on so that they can be a better representation of Christ within their business. Now, we're not talking about that. We're talking about stewardship. And essentially, the whole plan is highlighting stewardship. Now, for those of you that don't know, stewardship is just how you manage the resources that God gave you. So how you manage the time that He gave you, that's called being a good steward of time. How you manage the money He gave you, that's being a good steward of money. And you get the point now. Okay, so the one thing that really stood out for me is being a good steward of my businesses. And here's the thing, let me give you some context. I was listening to a podcast, and this podcast was about this woman telling a story about how she had her business. She grew it to 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, but she was very far from God. And essentially, she lost the plot, and she started idolizing the business instead of idolizing God. And that is where the problem started. She was just speaking about how God essentially took all of that away from her to bring her back and ground her and teach her that you need to focus on me. You need to put your attention on me. I need to be your focus point. I need to be your North Star. And then So when we're talking about being a good steward of your business, the reason why it is important for us to be good stewards of our businesses is because God has given us these businesses. He could do it himself. In fact, he doesn't even need to do it. But he has blessed us with these businesses. And just like the story of the workers that took their talents and used it and were able to increase multiple fold, that's essentially what God wants us to do. Okay, so as always, we are going to start this off with the story. I am paraphrasing because the story is quite long. I'm not going to read everything, but you can find the complete story in Matthew chapter 25 from verse 14 to verse 30. And essentially, this is about, so the story is about a master who has bags of gold, right? And he has money. This man is loaded up, and he had 3 servants. So to the one servant, he gave 5 bags of gold. The second servant, he gave 2 bags of gold. And to the third servant, he gave only 1 bag of gold. And then he's like, here you go. I'm going to be gone for a while. Take care of it. And then after a long time, the master comes back and he calls his servant. He's like, come, let's talk. What do you guys do with my money? Servant number 1, that was given 5 bags, he's like, I went and I put your money to hard work, and that 5 bags earned 5 more bags of gold. So now the first servant was given 5 bags, and then those 5 bags were able to get 5 more bags, and now he has 10 bags of gold. Okay? Same with the second servant. The second servant was given 2 bags. He put that 2 bags to work. That 2 bags made 2 more bags of gold, and now it's 4 bags. And then the last servant, who was like, listen, I knew that you were a hard man, and I knew that you were difficult, and essentially I was scared of you losing your money. What I did is that I took it and I buried it, but I've taken it out of the ground, and here's your 1 bag of gold. So that third servant didn't do anything, and the master was like, no, this will not do. You could have at least invested it in the banks where it would earn interest, but you didn't. You didn't do anything. In fact, let me actually read it. So the master, this is in verse 28, got my Bible with me. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Okay. And that's the thing, right? So these servants were good stewards of the money that was given to them. Even though it wasn't theirs, it was their master's. But they knew what to do with the money. They were like, they took that money and they put it to work. And when I say putting it to work, it could be a bunch of different things. It could be starting your business. It could be investing it in different places. It could be, I don't know, investing it in a friend's business. As long as that money is getting more money, that's essentially what it means to be put to work. And that's what happened. So that's how the one servant was able to get 5 more bags. The second servant was able to get 2 more bags. But the third servant, he didn't do anything. And it actually says there in the passage that to the one who little is given, they will get more, essentially, if they steward it properly. And that's where all of this starts. Being a good steward of your money, your time, and your business is very, very, very important, especially as a business owner and an entrepreneur. If we are using this story as laying the foundation, or as laying the rules to this game, if you are given 24 hours in a day and you spend your 24 hours scrolling aimlessly on TikTok, not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you're not being a good steward of your time. If you, however, take the 24 hours and you put it to good use, and you are furthering your working towards your goals or whatever you need to do, then you've essentially stewarded your time quite well. And the same thing works with the money. If you take your money and you put it in a piggy bank for the next 10 years, with the rate of inflation, if you started off with $1,000, that $1,000 is not going to just be $1,000 after 10 years. It might even be $600 because of the rate of inflation over the last 10 years. However, if you take that same $100 or $1,000, I don't know how much I used, but if you take the same $100 and you invest it somewhere, or you start a business, or you put that money to work, then you could have $1,000 or $10,000 at the end of that period. You see, the time is the same. However, the starting and the ending point for the two stories are different. The one that just put it in a piggy bank ended up with less, but the other one that put it to work ended up with more, even though the time period is exactly the same. Okay, so now let's bring that back to how that relates to being a good steward or a good Christian, all right? Because before anything, before we are business owners or entrepreneurs, we are Christians. God has blessed you with this business or businesses, if you have more than one business, and you are expected to be a good steward of that business. You are expected to take care of it. You are expected to be a good steward, right? In as much as you are being a very good steward, you should not idolize that business, because if we're being honest, right, being a business owner can be very time consuming. It can take up a lot of your mental space. It can be very consuming. We all know this. However, we need to remember that God is the reason why we are doing this. He's the one that has blessed us with these abilities. He's the one that has blessed us with these gifts. And in everything, we need to give glory back to God. Let's first get that clear, that God needs to be our focus point. And not only that, God also needs to be your business partner. Because again, right, I don't know about you, but I don't have 50 years of experience underneath my belt. And even if I did, right, God knows everything. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, "My people have not because they ask not." It also says, "Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find." It also says, oh my gosh, what's the third verse? It's literally on the tip of my tongue. I forgot the third verse, but there was another verse that I wanted to quote that was very similar to all of that. I think it is in Proverbs. I think it is in Proverbs. Anyways, um, if I remember it, I will write it on screen. But essentially, God knows everything, and why would you want to do life alone when you could do life with God? Why would you want to do business alone when you could do it with God? We have the ability to ask the creator of the universe to help us make the right business decisions. And a lot of the mistakes that we make can be avoided if we just sat, we paused, and we asked God if we should continue with this or not. And that's essentially important because God is our business partner, but sometimes we leave him out the loop and we keep on ignoring him. So being a good steward is also asking for help sometimes, because within the Bible plan that I mentioned earlier, I think quality number 6 is having a good mentor, something to do with finding a mentor, something of the sort. But that's my point. Like, God is there for us, or God can point us in the right direction, or God can lead us into the direction of people that can help us. And being a good steward is also asking for help. So this is, I could go on and on, but essentially stewardship is more than just being a good steward of your time, or being a good steward of your money. Within business, it is being a good steward of the business that God has blessed you with, essentially the baby that God has blessed you with. I hope you really understand what I'm saying. The last thing that I want to say on the topic of stewardship is that sometimes God gives us little ideas in our minds that we've been putting off. For an example, for me, I have had a content idea that I've been wanting to do, but I've just been putting that off. And if you really think of it, right, sometimes God speaks to us through our thoughts. And when you are being a good steward of the business that He's given you with, it is also being a good steward of the things that He wants you to do. I hope you have taken something away from this. I hope that this is resonating with you to at least some extent. And I hope you have a beautiful day further, or night. God loves you. I'll see you in the next one.